Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Welcome to my demo with Concept Art Association. Thank you guys for having me. This is really cool. So stoked to be able to be part of Lightbox again this year. It was an amazing event last year, and I'm glad we were able to have a way to celebrate it and have all these cool things happen this year. But yeah, my name is Don Carlos. I am a concept artist and illustrator. I was born in Manila. I'm a Filipino-American artist. I live in San Francisco, and I've worked almost 10 years in games, and 2 months shy of my 10-year anniversary in games, I made the switch, and I was able to, I worked at game studios like WB Games, Kabam, mostly mobile like the industry in San Francisco is, and then a couple months ago, I recently started a new job at Lucasfilm Animation as a concept designer. So that's been a dream and an amazing time, and I'm having a blast. And I truly think that, like, you know, my sketchbook is kind of what my sketchbook and my sketches. I tend to keep a sketchbook, so I say my sketchbook, but that can mean anything from your sketchbook or loose paper or a blank canvas in Photoshop. So just a heads up. Yeah, I think a lot of that's like what really kind of helped propel my career to where it is today, and my personal work as well. And honestly, it's the most fun I have when I work and stuff. So I'll get the slide started. So, you know, oops, is it started? There we go. As you can see, I keep a lot of sketchbooks. This is a handful of them that I had scanned for a talkative art station. You know, it's honestly sketchbooks and sketching has been something I've done for a very long time. I'll pause on this slide for a second. These are my sketchbooks from the 5th grade. I don't know where they are, but I somehow took a bunch of webcam photos and I found them in an old drive somewhere. So these are my old Dragon Ball Z drawings. And while I drew a lot of the same things, some Final Fantasy and some Spider-Man in there, it gave me a lot of mileage as a kid, and I just got really comfortable with drawing in my sketchbooks a lot. And honestly, it's just sketchbooks and sketching is just such a great tool. It's really awesome for brainstorming. You could just, it's a very low fail, low risk kind of place. Like, I know there's a lot of fear behind like a blank page or messing your sketchbook up, but personally, I think it's important to fuck your sketchbook up a little bit, honestly, excuse the French, but you know, sketchbooks are a place where you can do your exploration, your brainstorming. It's a great place to do studies. When you do studies, it's an amazing way to learn and process what you're seeing as you draw them. I think you retain more when you draw them, and you also develop your sort of shorthand and your calligraphy that you get with your line work and your brush strokes, or how you render from doing studies and observational sketches. And also just, you know, honestly, it's your playground. So it's a good way for you to be able to explore any of your ideas. You can do tons and tons of thumbnails and just figure it out. Even if it doesn't make sense to anybody else, it makes sense to you. You know, then it's a great way to like kind of get your ideas down and then take it to a canvas, take it to another drawing, take it to Photoshop, anything. So, you know, it allows you to, when you, for example, if you don't know how to start and you start putting shapes down and lines and forms, it's a great way to explore, kind of learn how to like take lines and shapes and forms that you make on paper and kind of develop that into characters, develop it into an environment or anything you're drawing, creature, you know, like turning those blobs that you sketch down there into something else and learning to kind of see silhouettes and where things kind of line up. And the act of doing that and being mentally engaged in drawing that way, as well as like the hand, you know, like the hand, eye muscle, brain coordination, I think that just makes you like a much sharper artist, and I think it helps you develop your skills, and it helps you develop a certain amount of agility when it comes to like iterating things and being able to visually depict something in a way that can be read. And I think as a concept artist and an illustrator, that's an incredibly important skill. I probably spend a lot of the planning and the thinking that I do with my concepts or character work and illustration work and a lot of stuff in the sketching phase, whether that's in Photoshop or my sketchbook. But the beauty of the fact that if it's your own sketchbook, and I'm not going to talk too much about like professional work, but I'm mostly talking about personal work, it's just a place where you can do that for yourself. You can sit there and just, you know, doodle a ton of shapes and stuff and figure out what you like to draw. If you like things like mushrooms, like I do, like I'll sit there and draw a bunch of like mushroom studies and start bringing those into creatures and characters, plants, anything, characters, costumes. It's just a great way to kind of sit down with yourself and explore and play. And as you're doing that, you kind of figure out how you like to draw things. You figure out how you like to use materials, how you can depict shadows in a way that's interesting to you. Or you could sit there and just hatch for 2 hours and have a great time just, you know, making a pencil go up and down and side to side and then you know there's a form. So it's, you know, it's a good way to kind of learn a little bit about not just, you know, how to do these things on paper, but it's a good way to learn about yourself and how you like to draw and how you like to use this stuff. And, you know, I know there's a lot of like pressure of like, you know, posting your drawings and like, you know, I always hear people talk about like having pressure to have pretty sketchbooks. You know, I think it's good to have the good pages and the bad pages. And sometimes you can learn things from the bad pages as well as the good pages. I have pages in my sketchbooks that are like fully finished drawings that are really nice and done. And then I have like blobs and blobs of like, here's like a really rough blobby silhouette with like notes on the sides. You know, it's you can use it however you like and however it can help you in whatever you're trying to do. And it's also just, for me, at least personally, it's been, you know, just a way for me to relax and warm up. I'm kind of one of those people that brings my sketchbook everywhere I go. It's a great way to be able to just kind of never be bored. I used to do, before COVID hit, I was always kind of in coffee shops after work or in a park somewhere or hanging out with friends or at a bar, just sketching and drawing if I was by myself. It made it so that I could always have something fun to do. And I took a lot of like what's happening around me, like the kind of residual like energy and vibe around like a coffee shop. There's a lot of life and things there. I was able to kind of, you know, I've always found that very comfortable to sit there and just sketch that. And because I kind of take it everywhere with me, my sketchbooks have not only become kind of a place where I do my personal work and my own explorations and ideas and projects, but it's become a place where it's almost like a time capsule, like almost like a journal of the time that I had it. For example, when I went to Montreal, I was pretty much out there with my sketchbook every day, even if I wasn't like, you know, sketching the whole time. If there was like a few minutes where I wanted to do something, I just had it and I could draw it. And the accessibility was really important. And it's great because I have this section of a book now that's like not only showing like all the different things I was into at the time. I was really into Dragon Age Inquisitions. I had just played it, and I was actually in Montreal for a workshop where Matt Rhodes was teaching something and James Gurney was there. So I was drawing a bunch of like, you know, Dragon Age inspired stuff. And then I was also walking around everywhere and I was drawing buildings, was doodling creatures and characters in a bar that I went to with friends. I went to the insectarium in the Montreal Botanical Gardens, and I did a bunch of bug studies. And those like 3 or 4 pages of bug studies I did have kind of inspired like probably, I want to say 4 or 5 years worth of like bug monsters. And now I have my own leaf mantis. You see the wash stuff will pop around in a minute, but like I have my own leaf mantis kind of taxidermied, like kind of the bug in a pin frame thing that I draw all the time. And there's like all these things that I just kind of took in from the world around me and kind of inspired all the different stuff. And because I had a place to put it down, because I just kind of jotted down real quick, I'm able to kind of refer back to that. And even if I don't actually physically look at my sketchbook again, the fact that I drew it kind of like helps me remember it. It kind of adds it to my visual library a little bit. And you know, when you have a bunch of like sketches and things to look back to, sometimes you can kind of revisit old ideas. And it's also just cool to see the time capsule of like where certain ideas you had started and how they develop over the years. And when I'm drawing these at the moment, I'm not thinking about how far in the future it's going to go. I'm just sitting there having fun. I'm just making shapes. I'm just chilling after work, before work, at a coffee shop, because of COVID, now at my house and my couch. And it's just kind of become a really fun place where I could just kind of, you know, it's my little sandbox where I can just do whatever I want, draw whatever, and have fun with it. And if I make a bad drawing, it's not a big deal. I move on to the next page. You know, I think it's important for people to be able to just kind of have a place where they can just have fun drawing whatever, you know, whatever they start to kind of figure out. And you know, it's amazing to get to work in this industry. It's amazing to get to work on all this cool stuff. But no matter how amazing a project you get on, no matter how amazing your job is, I think it's important to be able to sit down and have a little time to yourself to just kind of draw for yourself. That balance is really important to me, not just for my mental health, but for my physical health. Like, this stuff is something I really enjoy doing. And balance when it comes to like drawing and stuff is really important, because I feel like, you know, we're not like art machines. And I know I'm showing you a lot of sketchbooks, but this is done over a certain amount of time. I don't necessarily always draw every day. I draw a lot, and quite often. But admittedly, like since the pandemic started, I've actually not drawn in my sketchbook very much, not nearly as much as I normally do. And sometimes that's okay. It's important to learn when to push through a block, when to push through not being motivated and inspired. I think it's important to learn how to understand when it is important to push that and push yourself, and when it's important to and know when it's important to be able to let yourself take a step back, take a breather, and kind of enjoy life for a bit, or just let yourself sit with whatever's going on. You know, and I'm at a point right now where I'm trying to get back on the sketchbook saddle. I've had a very, very rough couple of months, to be honest with you. I had a completely different, not completely different talk, but I had different things I was going to talk about in this talk. But I think it's important to call the fact that, you know, when things are tough, when it's difficult, you know, you got to take care of yourself, not only physically because you don't want to get wrist injuries, but mentally as well. I've recently gone through a lot of tragedy in my life. My father passed away. My partner's dad also got sick, so he had to go home and take care of him. So this all happened the same weekend. So I've been kind of home alone this whole time in the pandemic. And then I went on a fun hiking trip. On the drive home, after feeling finally relaxed and enjoy and being out in nature, I got into a car crash. And that was 3 weeks ago. And all I can say is I am extremely lucky to be here. I don't know how I survived that car crash. Felt kind of like my dad had my back, but you know, it's definitely made it difficult to be able to sit down and just kind of draw and do things. And thankfully, I'm able to work again. I had about a week and a half where I had to just sit at home and recover. I was luckily only, I was able to walk away from that with just cuts and bruises and a concussion. And for those who've had a concussion, you know, you're not supposed to think, not supposed to do anything for like a week, right? It's really hard. And that's really hard for somebody like me who just like is always listening to music, always drawing, always doing something. I'm always, you know, I'm never quite sitting still. And when I'm sitting still, I'm like maybe watching, I don't know, like a nature documentary, or if I'm out in nature, I'm like watching a raven like eat something, the guts of a fish or something. I don't know. But I don't do well when I sit and don't think. So you know, it's kind of given me a little perspective of just, you know, it's really important to let yourself enjoy your art and do your own work and just enjoy your sketchbook. Like there's no point in hesitating about whether or not it's good enough to put on Instagram or anything or show anybody. You know, when I work on my personal work, I don't think about it in a way that I'm going to show it to anybody. This is just for me. And that's how my sketchbook is. And then I happen to share it afterward. You know, but I never think about that as a thing to kind of dictate what I do. Sometimes I will, like if there's like a really fun fan art, you know, hashtag, or I'll join that and stuff. But for the most part, my sketchbook is really my place to explore my personal work, because I think that's the work that is not only going to get you work that you want, because when you kind of show the work that's important to you and the work that you're good at and the work that you love to do, people resonate with that. It shows in your portfolio. I got into the schools that I wanted to because of my sketchbook. I got into a lot of the work I do because of my sketchbook. I've gotten a lot of work from people because they saw something in my sketchbook, and then I had the professional work to back it up. So it's kind of really just become this thing that's helped propel my career to where it is. And at this point, it's kind of what people recognize me or associate with me the most. So that's pretty cool. And it feels really good to get hired for the kind of work that you love doing. And you only get that if you have the work that you love doing, and you only get that if you spend time with yourself and figure that out. And for me, that's with a sketchbook. And so, you know, with having gone through a lot of grief, having gone through a near-death experience, and being thankful to be alive and able to draw and my hands are okay, one of the first things I thought of when the car was crashing was, oh no, like that scene in Doctor Strange where his like car folds into his hands. That scared me so much. And thankfully, first thing I looked at was like, my hands are okay. Okay, I'm not like, you know, thankfully everything was fine. And it just kind of made me realize, like, you know, I really just got to spend time and just work on the things I care about and want to draw and paint, and just all these ideas I have. Sometimes I don't even have thumbnails for the ideas I have. I just have like, you know, quick like notes written down so that when I have time to do it. And so now I'm making it a point for myself to give myself time to just work on that and explore it, because I almost didn't have the time to do that. And I have so many characters and creatures I want to draw and so many things I want to explore. And I think it's really important to do that. And for me, that all starts with my sketchbook. So yeah. And then, you know, real quick, I just wanted to do a quick flip through. And, you know, I guess at this point, if anybody has questions, feel free to like ask it. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you my camera so you guys can see my sketchbooks. All right, can you guys see the books okay? Yes. Steve will nod. Awesome.
Yeah, everyone.
Awesome. Alrighty. So
Yep, looking good.
all right, thanks folks. Okay, so you know, here's a few ones I have. I do everything does where I have a bunch of stickers everywhere. I love stickers. I'm really sad.
You're muted.
There we go. Cool. Thanks everybody. So yeah, so this is my most recent sketchbook. I actually started this one just before COVID. I've started to put my date and month that I start the sketchbook, but I don't always do that and I forget sometimes. But thankfully, usually the stickers and a few clues help me clue into when certain things happen. But you know, these were a bunch of sketches. You saw these in the slide. I used to go to the botanical gardens in San Francisco quite a bit before COVID, and I would just do studies and sketches. In fact, you know, this is right here is where I have a bunch of the studies I did from a bunch of plants while I was sitting there. And then I found this like crazy shrine that looked like it came from Dark Souls, and I just sat there and drew the mossy rocks, you know. And then after doing all this stuff, at some point I was sitting in a coffee shop and I decided to just make a bunch of plants from imagination. So a lot of those sketches I did from life that I experienced, I kind of took it in and started to kind of, you know, just from memory and from imagination, bring it into some of my personal work. These pages didn't work out very well. I wasn't super happy with these, but then I had a book I was really into called Gideon the Ninth, and I wanted to do all the characters as concepts for fun, just to explore it and like get better at like quickly iterating on characters, and I didn't have time to do it, so I just did a quick thumbnail thing and some notes so that I can come back to it when I have time. You know, and then this is just like a sketchbook page where I tend to start these things without actually knowing where I'm going. I just start doodling, and then usually it goes to heads because I love drawing heads, and then, you know, adding spikes and plant things, and it's kind of just like a smorgasbord of all these things I'm into. I'll do this like if I'm on Zoom with friends or talking or hanging out. I think I was on the phone when I did these actually. And then just some general exploration stuff, just doodles, and you know, I spent a chunk of time, you know, just some space pickles. My friend Kellen, we were hanging out just in a coffee shop in LA before. I was actually in LA the weekend before COVID hit, and I had just gotten a tattoo, and I had hung out with a bunch of friends, and it was a really beautiful weekend. And then I came home, and next thing you know, I was working from home. So it was kind of an intense month, you know. And you can kind of see I started going to a bunch of like online talks that everybody was doing, so I took a bunch of notes. Yeah. Just some doodles and stuff, and this is all kind of at home at this point, I'm pretty sure. You know, here's one of the ones. This is for like a demo I did. Just, you know, I'm really into like D&D, if you guys can't tell. So I kind of harken back to a lot of that kind of fantasy sketches, and then more notes from talks.
Dawn, I just want to jump in. People are asking, what ignited your passion for mushrooms?
Oh,
You're really digging mushroom sketches.
Oh yeah, I got the stickers. Honestly, they're just fun. I like the shapes. Honestly, hiking. Like, you know, I kind of spent a lot of time growing up and also being around the Bay Area, and they just look really cool, and I thought they were just really fun to draw. I like making the shapes of them. They're really fascinating. They're just scientifically one of the craziest things that exist on this planet. And that's it really, just the shapes and the colors and the things you can do with it. I was playing with a bunch of Posca markers right here. So yeah, that was it, just hiking. Like I tend to like latch on to things I geek out about. Like I'll be walking, I'll be like, oh my God, that's so cool. My dad said that when I was a kid, I used to take a bunch of photos of clouds. So like, you know, when I do environments, I'm always like, can I throw a cloud in there? And it's just kind of always stuck with me. So it's like mushrooms, rocks, clouds, I'll draw those any day, and plants.
Speaking of being outside in nature, Charmaine was asking, how do you get the confidence to draw outside? I always feel so conscious of my surroundings and get scared to draw.
Headphones. noise canceling headphones are amazing. And honestly, it takes a bit of confidence to build up to it, because it's not only being outside, and you know, right now there's not a lot of people, but like people will kind of come up to you if you're sketching. I usually just try to tuck away in a corner that I feel is like comfortable, and it just took me time to get comfortable with being able to be approached and things like that. And a lot of times I try to stay away from places that are really busy. So I think it's just practice. It's just getting used to it and used to it. I have a lot of sketchbook pages and a lot of bad plein air paintings I did over the years. And after a while, it just took time to build confidence. You also learn a lot of lessons, like bring a foldable chair with you, because your knees are going to hurt after standing for 2 hours. Or don't stand on top of a hill in the Marin Headlands in the middle of a fog bank, because at some point that fog bank is going to come from the sea and blow at you, and it's going to be so cold, and you only brought a hoodie. It's going to be so cold that like moisture particles start forming on your palette. And thank God you didn't bring your sketchbook, because it would have been soaked from like the fog and the mist. So you kind of learn things with that. The best way to do it is just go out there and do it. So
do you enjoy doing the studies? Because like people are saying that, you know, trying to stay enthusiastic about kind of plant studies and mushroom studies, you know, like do you find that fun?
Yeah, absolutely. With studies, I try to treat them just like my sketches. Like I'll start with like a rough blob. I try to keep them fun that way for myself. When they stop being fun, I try to find a way to make it fun. I try to find some way to make it fun. I try to find the one thing that latch onto it. But more often than not, when I do like studies of things, it's usually because something's caught my eye. When I was in school, I just did studies a lot because it was part of the curriculum and it was a good way to set my foundation. But now that I had a certain level of foundation, and I'll come back every now and then to, you know, doing studies and kind of learning to balance when to do more studies and when to do more imaginative work. But when I'm doing like a lot of the stuff when I do on the hikes and outside and stuff, it usually is something, if I get that inkling to like sketch it, or something's really interesting enough and I go, okay, maybe I should jot that down really quickly. Maybe I should, you know, do that. And it depends too. And there are times too when I don't do that, where I just go on a hike and I might just remember that shape, take a quick picture, come back to it later. So it's a bit of both. So, but usually it's something about that shape or those lines or that area or something that I saw there like catches my interest. Or I'm just bored waiting for somebody to like finish eating a snack or like do something, and I'll just sit there and just doodle what's in front of me if I can't think of anything to draw. So yeah, and use some quick thumbnails and all that. And I wanted to show some of these pages that just like did not end up anywhere. You know.
Dawn, people are itching to see you draw.
Okay. Oh yeah. We got time. All right, cool. Well, let's get started then. Yeah, and I guess while I'm drawing, if anybody has any questions, like feel free to just kind of, you know.
Do you want me to call them out, Dawn? Because they are just like boom, 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 just like keep coming. So
that would be amazing. I actually haven't figured out how to open the chat up, so that would be awesome.
Fine. So what sort of medium do you use when you're drawing outside?
Oh man, anything from pencils to ink to gouache to oil. I haven't perfected much when it comes to gouache sketching outside because I'm still learning it, and it's a very difficult medium because it dries very quickly. I used to do a lot of ones with oil when I was in school, but more often than not lately, the last few years, I've just been sketching with my pencil or my pen or my ink. So yeah, I'm just gonna start like throwing some blobs down to start to figure out, oops, is it a little blown out? Let me adjust that real quick. And folks, let me know if I start to cover my head, and I'll move it out of the way. I'll try to stand over here so I don't do that. But yeah.
So when you're drawing, do you think actively in 3D, or is it just like an automatic process when you're drawing?
Both. I think when I'm sketching, like I'm thinking about, I guess when you say thinking about 3D, I am thinking about things in both form and shape, like how, you know, for example, if I'm drawing this quick horn on this character, I'm not just thinking about it, I'm thinking about the silhouette and the flat shape it makes right then and there, but I'm also thinking about like how it's going back in space. So I'm thinking in both 3D and 2D, even when I'm doing like flat line work kind of art.
Where did you go to school?
I went to school at the Safe House Atelier. I actually joined a few months after folks like Carlo Ortiz did. I was in the same kind of school year as like Lake Hurwitz, Justin Sansucci, John Simon Brassel, Vicky Cio, Dennis Bolser. I kind of went there in like the early, I want to say 2009, 2011. So yeah, It was a great school. I got to learn from folks like Jason Chan, Wes Burt, El Coro, Kevin Millard, like, you know, and Carl Dobsky ran the main part of the school. It gave me a really good understanding of not only traditional studies in painting and atelier style, like figure drawings and cast drawings, but, you know, I've got pretty practiced in doing concept work as well, and just seeing what everybody was doing at the time was really helpful. So.
Vastir was asking, when he or she, I'm not sure, when I start drawing from my head, I realize I can't do it like I could if I had reference, so they stop. Any tips on that?
Yeah, honestly, if it helps you to have reference to start with, then go for it. Reference for me is always something to use as a tool. If it helps you, great. If it hinders you, loosen up on it. For me, it helps me to just start putting marks and shapes down, and start to kind of like, you know, learn to kind of take like the little blobs I'm making and kind of build something from that. Like this might be like a cool little head, you know, and here's like maybe a shape, maybe there's like a collar right there. So I kind of just practice doing a lot of that to help me kind of figure out what to do, you know, and if it doesn't work, super easy. You can just like bob it and erase it. If I'm drawing in pen, I just actually leave a lot of those marks because I feel like they bring a lot of character and inform stuff. So it's a little bit of just kind of being brave enough to just put something down and committing to it and just going with it, you know. And I think practicing drawing something, not liking it, and keeping on with it, and then trying to see how to, you know, you can kind of push through that is important, because then even if you make a bad page, I can guarantee you learn a couple things from doing that, and you can then take that and reapply it to how you might, you know, draw something next time. So I'm actually not feeling these pencil marks right now, so I'm just gonna kind of like loosely erase it. I'm gonna grab one of like my like brush pens here that has like this kind of like gray tone on it, and I'm just gonna start doodling with this and see what happens. So
Gracella Galvis, how do you handle art block?
Sometimes I push through it and draw anyway. Sometimes I just sit myself down and go, okay, you're gonna draw for 5-10 minutes, and then if it doesn't work, then I can like stop there. Or sometimes I just take a break. And usually if I try 5 minutes and it's not working and like nothing is working, and if it like just feels like it's more like I'm burned out than I'm, you know, than an art block, then I'll stop. But you know, it depends. So if I'm like working on something or having to finish a drawing for anything, then I just push through it anyway if there's a deadline. But sometimes I take a break and sometimes I just push through. It's just like learning when that threshold is for you. Does that answer your question? That...
This one.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's COVID times, right?
I have like 9 nieces and nephews, so like
yeah,
I really love sitting down drawing with kids, and it's a good time. So
yeah. Naru Kim was asking, before you sketch, do you recommend starting with outlining a piece, like doing the line art, or with blocking shapes and defining the volume first?
Honestly, whatever you prefer. Sometimes I start with block, like here I block a little bit more lines and shapes, but sometimes I'll start with like, you know, rough lines like right here and go from there. It just depends. I switch it up a lot. Sometimes I'll do blocks and shapes. Sometimes I'll do lines. More often than not, I tend to go to lines just because it's what I enjoy doing, honestly. Yeah, just whatever you prefer, whatever's comfortable at the time and whatever seems to get you to where you need to get to.
Your head is in the way.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
When Sarah R was asking, do you do sketches when you ink, because they are so pretty and I don't see any guidelines? How did you gain that confidence?
Yeah, sometimes there are some pages where I actually just go straight into ink, like this one right here. But more often than not, if you actually look really closely at my drawings, you will see that there's like pencil marks here at my ink drawings. Oh, yeah, there's some here. Yeah, like here I did pencil lines around this one first. I did some for a few of these right here. You can actually see like where I drew the head, like lines around there. So yeah, I do both.
Nora was asking, what tools do you take with you when you go out with your sketchbook? And your head is in the way again.
Oh yeah, sorry. Usually my good brush pen, some comfortable pencil, like my mechanical pencil and an eraser. I've got a few like marker brush pens I like, some for pigment liners, black wings. I'm obsessed with those right now. And like I have this like gray lip pen that's really fun to use as well. And yeah, I usually bring like too much stuff with me, like just different kinds of pens and pencils and color pencils. But my staples are usually some kind of pencil, some kind of pigment liner, some kind of ball pen, and a brush pen of some kind. I love this FP10. This one kind of goes everywhere with me.
I just want to say, for anyone that's having a lag on the camera, I'm not sure where that's coming from, Carla, but people are reporting that there's a bit of a lag when you're sketching.
Okay.
We are also streaming on our Facebook, Concept Art Association, and people are reporting that it's smoother over there. So just, it's a Concept Art Association over on Facebook if you're having problems with the lag. Someone was asking, do you have any tips on sketching complex architecture?
Oh,
I mean, you're more of a character person, right?
yeah, I've done some like studies of that. Honestly, it's just like at that point, it's just like it's kind of a similar thing I do with characters, where I just lay down like the foundation of it, and just kind of go from there. Like figure out the problems ahead of time. So, for example, if I'm drawing like a cityscape, then I might draw like the rough perspective in just loosely, and then kind of like detailed out from there. I would suggest looking at a lot of like old, like I think like Sargent has a bunch of like architectural paintings. I look at a lot of like old masters when it comes to this stuff, and you can kind of see like how sketchy some of even like their stuff is. That Tecton Concrete art book has amazing backgrounds, and if you look at it, like they're actually pretty loose and not super crazy tight when it comes to drawing it. And so I think it's just getting comfortable and practicing a lot. I don't do a whole lot of environment kind of structural architectural sketching these days, but when I was doing them, I just tried to, you know, I just did a bunch of them. And I might not be the best person to answer that right now because I haven't done those in a while. But, you know, I really think that just like kind of setting down your rough lines and planning it out and then just going for it and, you know, see what happens.
Any tips on how to find your own art style?
I personally think that art style always evolves. I think that art style is something that will constantly change. And I think art style is a combination of all the things that you like and how you like to draw and the way you've developed sort of your own personal calligraphy and the things that you enjoy. So I just draw a lot and I draw what I enjoy and I draw the things that I find interesting. And I think that's how I found what quote unquote is my style. But honestly, I don't even really know what my style is. I know there are certain things about it that kind of, you know, like they lean toward a certain kind of thing. But that's subject to change. And so I say just keep drawing the things you want to draw and your style will kind of come out from that. And when you look at artwork that you like and you look at things that you're interested in or like something catches your eye, try to like take that and understand what it is about that caught your eye and why you think it's cool, because that'll help you articulate to yourself, and also that'll translate in your artwork how to it'll help you understand like what it is you like about that and help you kind of sharpen that and then bring it into your own work.
Someone was asking, do you think it's more important to use your sketchbook for study or for fun?
Both. There are sketchbooks I have that have like almost no studies in it, and there are sketches I have that are you know, that have more studies in it. I tend to kind of go back and forth. If I'm on a kick where I'm doing a lot of really fun world building imaginative work, then I'll just use it for that. But it's just, you know, I treat my sketchbook as kind of like, here's the next page, so it's always a combination of both. I think that, you know, use your sketchbook whatever you want to. If you want to have a separate study sketchbook, that's great. If you want to have a mix of all, I personally like just having it all in one page and that, or one book, and then moving on to the next one.
Someone has a nerdy question, and I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. Rachel Palacio is asking, are you a tiefling often in D&D?
Did the horns give it away? Yes, let me show you something. This is actually my D&D character as a tiefling warlock that I concepted, and here's my little miniature of it. And I somehow keep playing tieflings because I think I really like having Hellish Rebuke, and I always end up playing warlock. So yes, I play a tiefling most of the time.
Love it. Someone, Aisha was asking, she loves the semi-realistic art style, but it seems too difficult to develop, and she gets stuck on the cartoony art style. So she was wondering how can she switch to more semi-realistic.
Well, I think that right there is where studies and foundation comes in. Some life drawing, some portrait drawing, some studies of that's important. I would look at books like that kind of help with that, like maybe like Alla Prima and understanding like if it's like lighting and things like that. Like James Gurney's books are really amazing for that. And then I think it's just practice and studying. It's like, you kind of start to learn the difference between like what makes something cartoony, what makes something realistic. And it's just like studying that and practicing it, right? Practicing kind of draw something realistic, practice like, understanding anatomy and structure, and then bringing that into your portrait studies or your figure drawing, things like that. But honestly, like, if it's, if you're like, reason to do realistic is just for the sake of it, then I would, if you like doing more cartoony stuff, do more cartoony stuff. But if you want to learn realistic because you want to do that stuff, then go for it. And honestly, just, it just takes a little bit of time and practice and understanding what, the structures are and like the different shapes and how they make it up. It's just, a slightly different level of like pushing shapes than like cartoony, whereas cartoony is, it's got its own like kind of difficulties, and it's kind of fun because you can like push and pull a lot of shapes and things like that. But like with realistic, I feel like there's just more information in more detailed information. You have to learn how to kind of depict that and the relationship they have with the shapes that are on the paper.
You able to hold your book up just for a second? Someone said they can't see the drawing.
Oh, they can't. Okay. I can zoom the camera in if that makes it better.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can try.
Does that work a little better, folks?
Let's see what they say. Looks great.
Cool. Yeah.
Let me see. Okay. Katrina Brickine, what ink pen are you using right now?
This is the Pentel FP10. It's just like a reusable brush pen, and it's got these like dope. It also is those ink things you can get. They're pretty easy to use. It's like a nylon tip, so it's just like a pretty standard pen. You can get these from like Blick or anywhere. And I like it because it's got pigment ink, which means it's it dries more permanently than like water-based ink, so I can go over these with like Copic markers or colored pencils or watercolors or anything and not have it blotch too much.
Do you do any warm-ups before starting a drawing?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I like to sit there and doodle a page. Sometimes in the morning before work, I'll have a coffee and just like sketch some stuff. Before today, I did a bit of warm-up this morning when I woke up just to kind of get my hands ready to be drawing and all that. So sometimes I don't. Sometimes I jump right into it.
Zap Hill was asking, they read in this drawing book about perspective that one should avoid hairy lines for drawings. That rule isn't strict with sketching ideas, right?
Sort of, yeah. I think when they talk about hairy lines, it's talking about lines that aren't confident. So for example, instead of like drawing a shape like this, you do this thing, right? And I think that has to do with like, line confidence. And when you do hairy lines like that, unless you're doing it for the sake of like depicting fur or some kind of texture, if you're doing it because you're like a little scared to kind of commit to the whole line, I think that tend to try to avoid that because it just makes your drawing a little bit, like kind of, it doesn't have that like deliberate quality to it. But, if you're using that kind of line work and hairy lines specifically to depict something or to give the thing a certain amount of texture, then I say go for it. But if not, then I'd maybe try to just commit to the full line.
This is an art question, and I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but Dee was asking, how much perspective do you need to know? Do you need to know beyond 3-point perspective, like curvilinear perspective?
I think it's important to know the foundations. I think I wouldn't say like, like when you're learning perspective or anatomy or anything like that, I wouldn't say like don't do sketchbook stuff until you get all that stuff mastered. I would say do your personal work and fun work congruently, like concurrently with all those studies. So I was trying to draw like sketches of like City Hall in San Francisco before I even fully understood perspective. And then the perspective kind of helped inform that. And when I came back the next time, I did it better. I think if you want to learn it, it's pretty fun. I don't think that just because you don't know it, that you shouldn't try to do it. I've done some pretty fun like fisheye perspective drawings. They are a pain in the butt, but they are good to know. I'm always of the mind that it doesn't hurt to know more. Just don't let it stop you from doing things because you don't know something.
Miki was asking, do you have a very specific hatching style? Do you have any advice to learning how? Are there any resources you use to learn, or any artists that inspired you to integrate that into your work?
It's a combination of things that I like. I mean, a lot of the brush pen work was inspired by a lot of like comic book artists, Sergio Topi, Mobius, things like that. The hatching for like the more pencil rendering kind of stuff that just kind of developed from like how I like to draw. I think it's obviously if you look at my work, I'm definitely influenced by folks like Mobius, Sergio Topi, like a lot of the Tech on Concrete stuff. Obviously, like Jacob Rebelka is amazing to look at. Claire Wendling, her line work just blew my mind when I started to understand what it looked like. Joseph Clement Cole is really amazing because you can see like how he rendered stuff. It's just a combination of all the different things I've latched onto. Wes Burt's a huge inspiration. Like when I was 14, I used to look at his work a lot, and I remember like being really amazed by how he handled the rendering of characters in pencil. So that was a huge influence from an early age. But it's honestly just like so many different things that kind of bring into what it is now. And how I develop like a hatching style that I like, it's a combination of me just physically enjoying doing this for hours, just like doing that for ages. And like I just really enjoy like hatching like that. And also a combination of liking the texture it makes. So it just took a lot of years of introspection and practice until I started noticing things and that I liked and how I naturally drew things. So it's a bit of instinct and it's a bit of developing.
Someone was asking, CJ Rue Soto, do you know people who've left art for a while due to physical issues? And if you do you know how to handle it?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? That's like, that kind of journey is different for everybody. I thankfully have not had to leave art due to physical issues. I did get some wrist injuries. And so for like a few years ago, I wasn't doing anything but work, and that really kind of ate away at me because I didn't have time to do some of the work I enjoyed. I think it's, it's the thing about art is like you can leave it and come back to it. But I know people that have left it. I don't know off the top of my head or any specific stories, but that's hard. But you can always come back to it, and just kind of pick it up again. It's like you might be rusty and it might be difficult to start up again, but then if you just keep at it and keep going through it, it'll come back. And you'll develop it in a different way possibly. So, but yeah, I couldn't draw for myself for a little while, and I actually picked up powerlifting, which actually helped my shoulders and my back, and I haven't had any wrist injury since. So, thankfully.
Someone was asking, is it okay to copy other artists from Pinterest if you are bad at drawing from imagination?
I think if you're doing it to study, yes, but that's a tough question because so I was like really young, obviously, like I copied like a bunch of Dragon Ball Z drawings and did studies. I think if you're doing it to study, that's sure. I wouldn't maybe post it, or if you do, at least make sure you definitely credit the artist and say that it's a copy and maybe show it side by side. And I think it's good for a little bit, but I think personally, in my opinion, if it's like a master copy, like, like a Sargent or something, I guess that's kind of a similar idea to it. I tend to not copy like contemporary artists who are still alive just because like, that's kind of like what they're doing. Like when I do master studies, it's more to understand like a fundamental, like how to paint light, how to draw a thing, how to like learn this composition. Whereas like when it comes to like copying an artist today, I think it's important for you to be able to push through that. Even if you're bad at drawing, like just make the bad drawings, because it's going to take a lot of bad drawings to get to good drawings, and it's going to happen like little by little, so you're not going to feel it right away. I think it's important to be able to let yourself make bad drawings, because just a bad drawing, you can draw another one and you can just go to the next page. It's not a big deal. And I know that's tough to sit with sometimes, but I think it's an important skill to learn to be able to do that. So I think if you're doing it to study for a specific reason, then I guess that's okay, but just maybe don't like post it or share it, or like, you know, I could be wrong on that. I guess I've never really done that, so I don't really know what I would or wouldn't do with that. But, you know, I would definitely at least like, you know, think about the purposes of why you're doing it versus like, you know, if you're doing it for study, then I guess it's a study. But just make sure you definitely share or show anybody you depict it, and you basically set that boundary that it's a study, if that makes sense.
I think that's good advice. Because there's too many people that are where artists don't get credited.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's just so important. In whatever context you're sharing someone's art, you should just always credit the original artist, in my opinion.
Like when I would do like film studies, I always even showed like either dictated what film it was, even if it's like a cinematography study. I'll like put like it usually like next to it or in the same post where I show like, here's my study, or a master copy the same way, just to be like, here's a study. Because like master copies are super helpful and actually really good, and so are cinematography studies. And like I've done like studies from like the museum, and I'll usually like label it, depict it right away. And also, even when I'm inspired by another artist's work, if it's like, oh, I drew this, like, you know, like a friend of mine did fan art of a book that I like from Gideon the Ninth, and she did this piece that was inspiring as hell, and I did a piece that was like kind of inspired by the book and also what she did. I made sure to credit that person, be like, oh, I was inspired by this person's work. So, you know, it never hurts to be like, hey, you know, this thing was cool enough and you want to do something. So.
How long have you been drawing?
Pretty much my whole life, but I probably started drawing seriously when I was 14. I went to my first concept art workshop when I was 14. That was in 2004. So that was a good chunk amount of time ago. But yeah, so I'm 30 and I've been drawing since like maybe as long as I can remember. It's a long time. But seriously, it's been about 16 years.
Adrian Hirsch Pollitt was asking what was the name. I'm not sure what he was asking about, and I think maybe Camilo Torres was asking, how do you spell it? Do either one of you, Adrian or Camilo?
The name of what?
Yeah, I don't know. Do either of you want to unmute and ask?
Sorry, I was asking about the name of the brush pen you like to use when you go out.
Oh, it's the Pentel FP10, and the other brush pens I use is just another kind of Pentel pen, and I also like Kuretake. Honestly, any of those brush pens work. The one thing I make sure is like it's a pigment-based ink, so that way I don't accidentally, you know, kill all my lines when I go in with Copic markers or one of these gray brush pens.
Sorry, the FP10 was the first one. What was the second?
Just any Pentel brush pen. It's just like a brand. I don't know what the actual numbers of these are.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Thank you.
And, Kuretake is the other brand that makes really good brush pens that I like.
How do you spell that?
Kuretake. When I went to Japan,
tomorrow.
I bought like $50 worth of brush pens, not just for myself, but for like friends and everything. And they're like checking my bag and they open it and there's like a whole roll of pens like this thick. I just like emptied out a pen store and brought home for my friends and then to have for myself as well to experiment with. This is one of those ones I got from there, just an orange brush pen. Yeah. If you ask me what pen it is, I'm gonna show you like an entire toolbox. I have so many. I love them.
People are admiring your wish potatoes, admiring your skull collection.
Thank you.
How many skulls do you have?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is technically my partner's, but you know, it's in my house, so it's our skulls. But I have about 6 right now, and when I move, I'm hoping to get more to support my local ethical bone shop, because they haven't been able to be open, and I haven't been able to buy new skulls. And you know, when I have more space in this tiny apartment, I'm definitely getting more. So
Ray Tabanday was asking, have you ever had a mentor, and what was the best advice you received as a junior artist?
Oh boy. I feel like I've had so many mentors my entire life. I've been really lucky in that I've been able to be around a lot of amazing artists and learn from them. I've got several pieces of advice. There's not really one singular one. I think that different times I got different advice that helped me get through a certain thing. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from both Ian McHugh and Darren Bartley at a workshop when we did a portfolio review. And Ian McHugh had looked at my portfolio, and then he looked at my sketchbook. And this is obviously like a short version of what he said. It was a lot more information at the time. He said that there was something about the energy I had in my sketches that was lost when I would try to like finish out my pieces, and I was kind of killing the energy in them. And that really resonated with me because I realized that a lot of my final work and my final concepts, I was trying so hard to kind of like render it to death and just do what I thought I was supposed to do, as opposed to like just enough to make it to, you know, I was like noodling a lot. And so when I started to, when I,
Oh, can you mute whoever's unmuted themselves?
So there's a question. As host, you can
it's-
mute people.
Dawn, I'm going to mute also. Just keep an eye on your mute.
I'll unmute right away. Am I muted? Okay, cool. So yeah, the like best advice was just like take what I'm doing in my sketches and the energy and the looseness and the fearlessness I had in drawing when I wasn't worried about like being a finished piece, and take that into my final work. And the moment I started to treat like my final work like that, like a lot of my paintings as like, you know, more like how I like to draw in my sketchbook, how I like to make marks and hash and render things, that's when my work, I feel like professionally started to kind of line up and be better. Basically, it was just like, just kind of be brave enough to do, you know, to do your thing. So, and just like stop like hesitating and noodling, because I was hesitating so much, and it just kind of had to learn to break away from that cycle of like kind of, you know, timidity when it came to painting stuff. And that's something I try to bring into not only my professional final work and my paintings, but also like my sketches, which is why like sometimes I get a big brush pen like this and just force myself to draw with it so I can, you know, I don't have any room to hesitate.
So we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to try and blast through a couple more questions. What sketchbook are you using?
My Moleskine. I got a big Moleskine. I like them. They have like, they last through a lot of things. They survived all kinds of stuff. I've taken like my small Moleskines into mosh pits before, and they survived all of that. And I play around with different kinds. I have like a few other ones, like some, I got one of the cottonwood ones that are pretty cool, but most of the time I just go to Moleskines. And if I'm not drawing in a sketchbook paper, I'm usually using like Bristol paper of some kind, or like a bleed proof ink. Yeah.
Someone was asking, any tips on making learning perspective fun?
I think like if you think about it as like too technical of a thing, then you kind of, if you think about it too like mechanically, it might not be as fun. But if you think about it like, I'm trying to think, like, I guess try to like, when it comes to like perspective, like try to find like the shapes that kind of make up the thing. That's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, when I think about doing like perspective heavy work and environment work, it's just, I just think about it like, you know, it's the same thing as like characters where they're just like shapes, but they're just a little bit more hard surface and solid than say, you know, like a character. So I think I try to find something that is fun about it and do that. And also like, I think there's a lot of really good perspective books out there. Like I know Marcus Mathieu Mystery, I've probably saying that wrong, so I apologize, released a really good perspective book that I have yet to purchase, and kind of, I want to go back and like actually read some of that book just to kind of refresh myself on perspective. Like even if I learned it, I still want to refresh on it. Yeah, I would look at that. And honestly, the Tech on Concrete art books and the Dishonored 2 art books has some really beautiful perspective environments that are drawn that are inspiring to me. So I look at that when I'm kind of feeling dull about my architectural drawings. So I haven't done them in a while. So got some Copic markers here. every time I go to a convention and Evercopic has a booth, I just go there and like every time I sell like a print or two, I'll go and like buy a bunch of markers, and that's how I have these.
I'm just going to say, as we're going to start wrapping this up in a second, anyone that missed the beginning part of the demo, it'll be posted on Concept Art Association YouTube page, our Facebook, and then I don't know whether Dawn wants it to live anywhere else, but we'll
Yeah, for sure.
it'll be available for everyone to see.
A little bit more texture on the face. I was looking at Mobius last night and I remembered how he always had like really cool like hatching that just added to the texture of the piece, even if they weren't like, you know, part of it. So I threw in a lot of like floating baubles here to make it seem like they're in some kind of spacey space. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody. This is super fun. And thank you again, Concept Association, Rachel and Nicole, for hosting and inviting me to do this. This is rad.
Oh yeah, it's been great. It's been a lot of fun watching you sketch. Let me see. Yeah, we're gonna have to wrap this up real soon.
Thank you, Dawn. We really appreciate you. This has been awesome.
Thanks.
And we'll hopefully see you guys on an event in the future, and hopefully you guys will check out the Concept Art Awards tonight at 6 p.m.
Yeah, thank you guys, and thanks everybody for coming. So
Thank you.
catch you guys around the rest